forecast for the week of July 2nd, 2023. It is the first full week of July, and it starts with excitement of the full moon. So actually, it starts before the excitement of the full moon. We're coming off of the Neptune station on June 30th. That's Friday, which of course can make things a little bit bigger or a little bit less than they might otherwise be. There's a lack of proportion with Neptune station. A lot of fun, fun weekend. Fun weekend. Neptune station and an almost full moon makes for a fun weekend, especially because the moon will be in Sagittarius through Saturday and into earliest Sunday. Fun stuff, right? This is good stuff. So it's not the most realistic energy, but who needs things to be realistic? This weekend is about going with the flow, letting serendipity rule, just meander along and see what happens. That's kind of the way to approach this weekend. Not really a great time for practical matters. And then we hit the full moon on Monday, July 2nd, July 3rd. Now, this full moon continues that sense of there being things a little out of proportion. As with any full moon, it could be a little bit out of proportion. That's what full moons do. They exaggerate things, particularly on an emotional level, particularly in the collective level. This could play out a couple of different ways. One, the high energy of the weekend essentially just continues through Monday and Tuesday. That's one thing. That's probably what most of us are going to be looking at. If some folks may have gone off on a little bit of a crusade with the Neptune station. They may have gotten a little excited about something that was not so realistic. And then the full moon in Capricorn, with the sun in Cancer, sort of a conservative kind of sign, and the moon in Capricorn, Saturn sign, there might be a little bit of reactivity, a kind of, oh my gosh, I can't believe we said we were going to do that, I'm not going to Florida next weekend. That was nuts. Why did I say something like that? That kind of thing. For some people, not for you, but for some people. On the collective level, too. Things that got sold, things that got sold cheaply on Friday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. On Sunday, Monday might wind up coming down a little bit. And, oh, wow, we've got to rethink this a bit. Generally speaking, though, I think that the feel of this full moon is one of just a summer full moon. If you're in the northern hemisphere, it's a summer full moon, and it should just be a nice time. If you're in the US, it's at least theoretically a long holiday weekend, and the full moon adds to that. So apart from the smoke from Canada and the heat wave and all of that, it should be pretty good. A lot of things will come to light, as things always do with the full moon. This full moon, eventually, the moon goes on to meet with, that guy Pluto at the end of Capricorn. So we're going to get to see some of that again. So there is a little bit of a serious reckoning kind of energy that's coming at some point in time. But I think we'll get through the weekend the long weekend. We'll get to midweek, let's say, before we have to reckon with that. Also this weekend, and it's been building for the last week, and it peaks on Sunday, but it'll be revised and reheated throughout the week, particularly midweek and beyond, when the moon is in Aquarius, is a square between Venus and Uranus. Now, Venus-Uranus, Uranus is always impulsive, right? It's always the kind of thing where you just act impulsively. Sorry for the snap, Pat. You move quickly with things. However, it's not going to be quite so popped this time. Okay, so with Venus-Uranus is kind of like, you in a square aspect, especially, you get a little impatient with the status quo, you think you want to make changes. And there could just be some impatience with your partner. There could be some patience with social things and plans in general, and some stuff like that. But Venus is moving very slowly as she prepares to retrograde in Leo. Uranus is in Taurus. That's Venus's home sign. So he is sort of constrained to speak in Venusian terms. So this is not really what I would consider to be such an irritable square. I mean, Venus slowing to retrograde suggests a little bit of impatience, but hitting Uranus by square suggests a little bit of impatience, but I don't think it's going to be anything too bad. Could be some conflict between, do we go do the exciting romantic thing, or do we hang out with friends, or, some a little bit less type of thing. Do we do the usual routine, or do we break out of it and try something a little bit different? That sort of thing. It should not be especially volatile, however. Especially, we should look at this as being an opportunity to experiment. Right? That's always a Uranian keyword. So Venus, Uranus, you're experimenting in the areas of relationship, creativity, valuables and valuations, and romance. I always say, try something new, try someone new. However, because Venus is slowing to retrograde, and she will actually meet with Uranus during her retrograde again, and then going forward, we really have throughout the summer and into the earliest fall to see the results of the experiment, or even to decide on what kind of changes we might want to make. In other words, it's not like you've got to get it right this weekend. Between a Neptune station and a full moon, you might feel you got to get it right. You might feel you got to make a change. You got to make a decision, but you don't. You could consider it. And that's probably the thing to do with Venus approaching her retrograde. You reconsider, you reevaluate relationships, creativity, things like that. It's a Monday. It's a Sunday actually, but it'll resonate all week long because Venus is moving so slowly. This has been in orb for a while and will continue to be. It could also have effects on markets and finances. The Neptune station and building up to that seems to have really kind of inflated things for the last week. And they may take another turn up or down. It's really hard to say. It's not really a bad aspect. But there could be concerns about finances on the collective level, and there could be concerns about finances on the personal level. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm just going to say that with Venus going retrograde, this is not a great time for luxury items and so on. Right? You don't want to really indulge yourself too much. Neptune, the full moon, probably some indulgences are called for at some level, including this Venus-Uranus square. There's some push towards a little bit of indulgence, but don't go overboard too much, because Venus retrograde says, you can have the indulgent experience, but don't make an indulgent investment. Let's look at it that way. All right, this is sort of a feel that is going to be there. We're reevaluating relationship and considering something new. We're looking to change the channel on Venusian matters, just to see what's on the other station. Just looking to see what's on the other station. We'll turn it back in a minute. It's a commercial anyway. We'll turn it back in a minute. Okay, so you get the idea of that. Full moon on Monday. Let's say that resonates all the way through Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're starting to get into a little bit more of a business as usual kind of vibe. And that's pretty much the way July works, right? That's pretty much what we do in July. We have a big pop of excitement, and then we have a period of things, we can kind of, we can integrate and back off and consider things, and then we get another pop of excitement. The next big pop of excitement happens, however, into next week's forecast. It's especially hot on Monday and Tuesday of next week. So even as we come into the weekend and you deal with Friday night and Saturday, we'll be dealing with a waning moon. We're going through Aquarius, Pisces. It brings back some of that Neptunian energy, right? It brings a little of that Neptunian vibe back in, a little bit more of that kind of go with the flow thing as you get towards next weekend. You start to feel a little prickly energy. Oh, one more thing. I almost forgot. On Monday, we have, or no, it's actually Tuesday. We have Saturn planet of stability, is trine to Juno, the relationship asteroid. And this is kind of a little bit of, this is a contrast, right? Venus and Uranus are saying, let's consider what we want. Let's reconsider what we want. Let's reevaluate our position in terms of relationship. And, we're talking about Juno, so we're just relationship, not the other Venusian things. So we're like reconsidering, we're open to new possibilities, right? Experimenting. Meanwhile, Saturn is trining Juno just a couple of days later, and that is helping to put a little bit of a steady, even keel on existing partnerships and relationships. And that's going to resonate with Jupiter's sextile to Juno next week. So we're getting a different vibe. So if you're, in terms of relationship, if things are going well, you're happy, everything seems to be wonderful, it's great. Either way, everything is good. All right. If you're single or if things are not going so good, the volatility of the Venus-Uranus square will probably be kind of the dominant thing, and you may not get quite so much juice out of the Saturn-Juno aspect. But it depends where you are. It always depends where you are with things. That's the important point. If things are going well, if you're on solid ground, none of this stuff really rocks you too much. You feel it. You feel it. It's happening. You see it going on around you. It doesn't necessarily affect you all that much. So this week, in the area of relationship, it depends. Are you in this sort of Venus-Uranus volatility thing, or are you more the Saturn-Juno stability thing? That's up to you. That's up to you. That's not down to the forecast or anything like that. But just do keep that in mind. So we start the week with a lot of activity. If you're in the US and it's a holiday weekend, it should be a good one all the way through. We're talking Friday. Well, this is not going to air until after Friday, but from Friday all the way through Tuesday should be a good time. It's a lovely weekend, lots of opportunities, change things up, mix things up, give something to try. It's great. Midweek and beyond, kind of settling down a little bit. I guess it's like, July 5th, back to work thing. And, you kind of take things one step at a time. We do have some constructive aspects in that period of time. Mercury is going to be sextile to Uranus. It's helping to communicate things easily, but also kind of, coming up with new ideas that you can use to innovate. So that's a good thing. And then as we approach the weekend, the energy starts to shift and build a little bit more. Mars is going to be at the very last degrees of Leo, and he's not alone out there. Pallas Athena is also at the very last degrees of Leo. And we start to get this a little bit more like, I'm pushing for what I want. I'm pushing for what's important to me. I'm going to let you know. I'm going to tell you about it. But you may not really hear about it until next week, which is when I'll tell you all about it.